Hey everybody, how's it going? So a lot of news came out the last day or so about the whole Spider-Man beef with Sony, Disney, Kevin Feige, everyone kind of wrapped in this weird breakup of sorts where people said, oh, the discussions are ongoing, people said the discussions are done, everything's irreparable, things like that. Because there's so much going on, I figured it'd be helpful to make a video, basically like what we know so far and what's going on, and I guess potentially what can come out of it going forward. So yeah, getting into it, basically yesterday broke the big news that Spider-Man movies are no longer going to have Kevin Feige as producer, and Disney will no longer be involved with, I guess, producing the movie for the most part, which means they will not be in the MCU. Now this is really confusing because the Spider-Man films with director John Watts and also Tom Holland starring as Peter Parker's Spider-Man still have two more movies down the line that were planned to be made. So Sony actually says they will continue to do the two movies, but it'll be really weird because Spider-Man Far From Home obviously introduced certain things like Daily Bugle, a new version of Daily Bugle. We have Spider-Man in a new position in his life. He's now dating Michelle. Mysterio just revealed his identity, so that was the plot twist they ended on. So all things considered, it'll be really weird to continue all of that. They had the Skrulls with Nick Fury in there too. I mean, it would just be really weird to continue all of that without being able to mention either Happy or Tony Stark or really a lot of the characters that made Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man Homecoming so unique in its own way as a Spider-Man story. Now, a lot of people are blaming Sony, but Disney isn't a saint either in this whole issue thing. So basically, Disney beforehand was receiving 5% of first dollar gross, and now in these renegotiations of sorts, wanted 50%, which is a huge change, of course, not really anything incremental. And I wouldn't be surprised if that big kind of difference there in asking is because Disney saw, hey, we're making this $1 billion per movie franchise going forward. We want some of that cake. You can see where Sony is coming from because Sony's thinking we're financing the whole thing. Of course, we should be getting 100% or I guess 95% of the box office returns for it. So there's really no pure good guy here. It's kind of Disney being a little greedy in certain ways. And of course, Sony just being really hard-headed and being like, well, no. And you can understand from a business perspective why Disney and Sony would be butting heads because, of course, if you're going from 5% of first dollar gross to 50% of gross, that is a huge change that, for the most part, I guess Sony probably can't really justify doing so unless Disney takes more risks involved with the project besides simply creatively producing it, getting all of the credit for the movie being good, and then merchandise and things like that. So it will be really curious to see if they come to a deal how Disney might be compensated outside of box office, assuming that Sony doesn't actually fork over 50% of profits going forward, because that'd be huge. Now, supposedly these talks have also been going on for quite some time here. It'll be really interesting to see if we get an official timetable, but of course talks like this don't happen overnight. Kevin Feige during Comic-Con actually in July hinted that they were kind of working something out with Spider-Man, which is probably why for the most part, even if he had something in his back pocket ready to announce, he never officially announced anything for Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man 4, whatever have you, to be a Phase 4, Phase 5, or Phase 6 movie. Now, even besides that, a lot of things that was interesting in Sony's statement hinted that it wasn't Kevin Feige's fault, it was Disney's fault. So kind of blaming the parent, not the kid in this situation. And they also blamed Disney for basically giving him too much to work with, giving less time for Kevin to be able to work on the Spider-Man IP, which I said in our news flash for that I think is total BS because Spider-Man is one of the most popular characters, if not the most popular character on an individual superhero basis. So there's no way that Disney would not prioritize Spider-Man if need be. I mean, out of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, if you're telling me Disney would rather Kevin Feige not work on Spider-Man versus the other two properties, that's no sense. Perspective makes no sense. But from a creative perspective, it makes no sense considering the build-up you've done at this point with the Spider-Man franchise, taking such a huge lead going forward in the MCU. That's really where all the talks stand at this moment. Pretty much it's a standstill, presumably between Disney execs and Sony execs, and pretty much they'll have to work out the whole who's getting what percentage of gross for each movie going forward. But if they get that figured out, I'm sure the rest of it will kind of fall into place which is a good thing. While, maybe they'll have some time to negotiate during phase 4. Who knows? But leave your comments down below. What do you guys think? And we'll see you guys later.